I tell my wife all the time, just keep your expectations low. And when I do something good, you'll be like, oh.
You're always happy.
You're always happy.
And Ashley's still waiting.
Yes.
Welcome to the Two Authors Podcast, an entertaining chat show hosted by best-selling mystery and thriller authors Douglas Pratt and Nicholas Harvey, in lively, humorous and informative conversation with distinguished guests who share their thoughts and experience about forging a successful author career.
Welcome to the show, everyone. It's exciting to have you all here. How are you today, Mr. Nick?
I'm good. Good. I'm excited. We have our first ever returning guest.
Yes, the wonderful, best-selling Lisa Regan is going to come back with us, and we'll just chat with her here in a minute. But before we do, I think we've got a question from Diane from Virginia. She asks, how do you choose and adhere to the level of sex, language, and violence in your books?
Yes, okay. Choose and then adhere to.
I choose the sex.
You choose the sex.
Oh,
yeah.
This is a multiple choice. Was it? Okay, I'm sorry. My bad. Sorry.
Doug hears certain words in sentences. I think for me, I didn't know. Yeah, I said this many times. I really didn't know what I was doing when I wrote my first book, and then sorted some of it out a bit later. But for me, it's a personal line in the sand. I'm not comfortable writing sex scenes. I just find it awkward to write sex scenes. I don't think I'd write them well, and I don't think they fit into the books that I write. So I don't. I do closed door, any sexual interaction. So that's an easy one.
They're on the same side of the door, right?
Yeah. I don't know why I thought of a confessional when you said that. That just got us cancelled off of everything in Italy.
I guess they could be on other sides of the door then.
Yeah, exactly.
So, it's a different genre altogether. So
yeah, a little different. So language-wise, I definitely wasn't sure when I did my AJ. I had some F-bombs in it originally, and then I took them all out and I've left that series as what I call PG-13. So language-wise, there's a little bit of mild swearing.
So you get one F-bomb?
No, there's none. So there's just mild swearing, especially it's English language swearing.
What are some good bloody,
bloody, bugger, wanker, tosser, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Okay. We need like a glossary of English curse words for.
We have some decent ones.
I have some good ones. Yeah. So go ahead. I'm sorry. Violence.
I don't personally like gory violence. I think gory horror movies about the worst thing I wouldn't I wouldn't pay to be made to feel that way. So I understand some people like it. I don't like gore. I don't like violence in that way, and I don't like it when it's used inappropriately, gratuitously. So I'm just not comfortable with that. It's people hurting other people or other creatures, and it should be used carefully. And it has way more impact when used carefully. And what you don't see can be so much more impactful than what you do see sometimes. So I kind of adhere to that line of it. So that helps me keep the level at where I want to keep the level at, I think. So that's helped me. How about you?
Oh, I think it's like cheese sauce, and as much as you could gratuitous cheese sauce that I can put on a story. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, I think I have a tendency to kind of do the whole fade to black. I mean, I'll have a little bit. It's not going to be close the door necessarily, but it's going to be. I'm not comfortable always writing sex scenes either. I think it's something I need to work on a little bit as far as like trying to because I think there's certain genres it matters. I don't think in our genre it's necessarily required, but I do. So I kind of think it's more of a closed door fade to black feel for me. I don't really adhere to anything. I'll push that line that I have in the sand a little bit just for my own comfort. Like I think it's okay to stretch that comfort without going too far. I don't want to write, erotica or anything like that. So I'm not going that route. Language, Chase is a Marine, so he's going to drop the F-bomb. He's going to say a few things. It's all way more than my mom wants to read in the books, but that's what it is.
Yeah, I F-bomb in the Nora series because like your Chase series, I think it's appropriate in places
right,
as long as it's not sprinkled like fairy dust throughout the whole thing,
And violence, well, bloody, there might be some blood spatter. I mean, Chase and Corsair, both of my series, they're going to kill people. There's a high body count.
They're action-adventure thrillers. There should be a body count, right? It's true to the genre, but you don't go gory.
I don't go gory, but I do want to find unique. So I would love to, like, if I see something out and I go, be kind of
That's
cool.
a funky way to kill someone.
Can I kill somebody with a vacuum cleaner? Or what? If I see something, the first thing I think of is, I wonder how kind of an action scene I could have there. Could I crush somebody's head with a culvert?
That's cool.
A little bit gory, but that's, you start thinking about how to do some stuff that's different.
Funny says talking about people dying, but it's but honestly, it was funny in Relentless, right? In Relentless, it was creative ways of making it look like accidents.
But I think it depends. Like our missing our Wolf Green series, Missing in the Keys, Missing in Zanzibar, those are still actiony, but we don't have a lot of killing or anything else. But it's a little more PG-13 to a low R rating, so it's nothing gory. So far, we kind of stay away from the sex. So I think it's going to depend on the series you're doing. Like, I think those two are not going to be blowing people up on a regular basis. So
I think the key is knowing your genre, right, and knowing what's expected, the tropes of your genre, because it does change things. If you have a lot of swearing and harsh swearing in your books, there is an audience that will not read it and that will be upset with it.
It's like Amish romances. You can't have like the ankles and stuff. Steamy Amish romances do have some ankle.
That's different. That's different
totally
again.
Different,
that's different again. Cool. Let's get on to someone far more interesting than us. That's Lisa Regan, USA Today and Wall Street bestselling author. Recently released book 20, a big milestone in her chart-topping Detective Josie Quinn series.
That was like a huge bestseller for her too. It was great. So
massive. Yeah. She's a big deal. And I think she forgot she came on the show before, and that's how she said yes to coming on again. And let's chat with her now. Lisa Regan, thank you so much for coming back on the show. You are a brave young lady. Welcome.
Yes, welcome.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. I love your show.
Oh, thank you so much. So.
See, that's two. We've added up. We've got two. We found
we're up to
two.
3. I think Cheryl listens, doesn't she?
She does sometimes, although I'm a little behind, she'll say, and she hasn't listened to the last 6. So anyway.
How are you doing today, Lisa?
I'm great. How about you guys?
Good. And lead us in with a quick brief. We've been on the show before, so some people listen, some people haven't. So give us a quick brief on how you got going in writing and when you started publishing.
Well, I've been writing basically my entire life from 11, always written. I went to college, wrote on the side, went to grad school, kept writing, and then I finally had something I thought was palatable to readers. So that I tried to get an agent, and that took 4 years. Got the agent. She was pitching the book. I was turned down by 24 publishers, even though they really liked the book. I finally found a very, very, very small publisher to take my first and second books. And then within a year of publishing the first one, they closed. So then I was out on my own. I did some independent publishing. My third book I had put out myself, and then Thomas and Mercer picked it up. I did pretty well.
Who?
Thomas and Mercer.
Never heard of them.
It's an Amazon imprint.
A small company.
Yeah. So then it did fine, but not great. And I was writing very slowly at that time. And so I pitched my next book to them, but they didn't feel it was right for them. And after that, I had written a sequel to my first book, and they took that and my first book to republish. And at the time I was still, working on other things. I really wanted to work with Bookature. So I pitched them a whole bunch of stuff that they didn't think was right for their list either, but they did like this idea that I had for a female detective. So basically what they said to me was, we'd like you to write detective fiction, this flawed, damaged detective with a alcohol problem and thirst for justice. And I said, sure, if I can write that as a woman. So the idea then for the first book, they liked, and they said, write this, give us proposals for 2 more, and we'll talk. And so the short story is that those first 3 books did really well, the Detective Josie Quinn books. And I've just turned in book 21 in that series, and it's slated for 35 if reader interest stays strong.
Which it undoubtedly will, because
I hope so.
Every new one that goes even higher and better than the last one. And congratulations on hitting number 20. That's truly a milestone.
That is. Yeah. That's awesome. So,
and it was fun to see all the hoopla that around 20. It was really cool.
It was very surreal. Yeah.
So let's talk about, because I think this would be of real interest to everyone, is thinking about your mindset when you go into writing a series. So when you wrote those first few, they said, hey, give us some ideas for about 3 of them. Was your mindset when you started those 3, or were you already thinking more?
No, it was just those 3. I truly, truly thought that I would write 3 books for them. They would do somewhere between terrible and okay. and then I'd be back out there.
Way to keep those expectations down. I like that,
dude. Keeping them high.
Hey, yeah. If you're going like, hey, this is going to be the greatest, then you're like,
yeah. No, but she's never disappointed.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I tell I tell my wife all the time, just keep your expectations low, and when I do something good, you'll be like, oh,
you're always happy.
You're always happy.
And Ashley's still waiting.
Yeah, well, I've trained those expectations down a little bit. Like, there's no point in letting her think something good's going to come about.
Great. So you do the 3, you plan the 3.
Yeah.
They publish them. They do really well. Yes. And they're like, give us more Josie Quinn. So now you've got a mindset of, okay, I've got to write more of these. How far out then were you thinking?
I was only thinking at that point the length of, whatever the next contract was. Because, in my experience in publishing was just not, horrible. I've known people to have worse experiences, but it was pretty much like you could do 1 or 2 books with a publisher and then you're back out on your butt looking for a new home. And so my expectation was kind of always that this is not going to last.
We're still in that mindset.
I'm not going to. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously not now, but when I went into book 4, that was a 3-book contract. So I'm only thinking up till 6 because I don't, I guess I just was really paranoid after all those years of struggle. So.
Were you full time by then?
No, I went full time right before I have to think about this. I think I went full time around when book 6 came out. I quit my full-time job, and I remember the day, April 30th, 2019.
Did you flip them off and burn rubber down the road?
That impulse is strong, I think, when you leave a job.
It is.
But
like you're like, I'm out of here.
But I really loved my full-time job. And I think I could have probably left earlier, but I really loved it. I loved my coworker. I loved my boss. I mean, he was just, you would never find a better boss than this guy.
What kind of work did you do before
I was a personal injury paralegal. And my boss was always so supportive of this writing thing. He was so flexible and, just kind and generous. And whenever my family had problems or health issues, I mean, he just was like, do what you have to do. Your job will be here. He was just wonderful. I felt truly horrible leaving, but he was like, you're clearly really good at this. This is what you need to be doing.
So I've got a question now. So you got book 21 coming out. Up to 35, you said, which, wow. My Chase Gordon series is on 12 I'm working on now. So, and I'm curious, how do you deal with, Josie's age, obviously 35 books out. You're doing, I guess, 3 to 4 books a year, 3 books a year. Is that about right?
3 books a year.
3 books a year. So does she age, or is she kind of like the, so many of our characters, that they're still the same? I think Stephanie Plum is still 20 something.
Yeah.
She's got 40 books out. Yeah. So how do you deal with that with Josie?
I really screwed that up because I didn't think that the series was going to last. And so in the beginning of the series, the leaps in time were quite long because she started out at 28 and I thought, I'm only going to do 3 books. And so then she turns 30 in book 3. And then I was still kind of extending the time a lot. So, but the thing is that readers haven't really noticed. But now I kind of set the books within a month or two of whenever I'm actually writing them. And so really she has aged in real time, but I was writing an email to my editor the other day and I said, Josie is 37. And then I wrote, yikes, because she's getting older, but there's no way to avoid time passing over 20 books. It's just not going to happen. I'm trying to slow it down now, but again, the readers never ask.
Have you ever thought about, again, Lee Child does a couple jumps back in time and does a Jack Reacher set in the 80s or whatever.
We talked about a prequel, but I kind of pulled my most faithful readers and it was split.
We'd love to have that, but don't let it replace the next one in line.
So
just write it extra.
Yeah, write extra books is what you need to do.
Right.
Those readers are great about that. Like, yes, I'd like to write something else. Oh, good, but don't stop writing this.
Yeah, but you have to put this out too. Yeah, it's a real problem with the age because I did the same thing. I put dates in the early stuff, and my main characters. So she started aging, and she got to 30, and then I realized, you know what, she just needs to kind of hang out around there. So all these things happen. And in our heads as writers, we're thinking, gosh, how much shit can go wrong in these little towns or an island in my case, so it's like you can't have it just a few months later. But I actually do the same thing you do where I set the time period, like I look up the weather, the season, all that stuff for when that book's going to release. And then I've just started ignoring her age and not mentioning it anymore.
That's what I've done. it never comes up. I never mention it. And no one has, of all the things that I get dinged for, no one ever brings that up.
But yeah, I don't think across the board. Like I remember, I read a lot of Clive Cussler, and his character Dirk Pitt started, I think, in the 70s, and he made a comment. He goes, he stayed the same age from 74 until somewhere around the 90s when he's like, I think maybe I need to age him a little bit. So I don't think it's unexpected. I mean, I think that the main, like we said, Stephanie Plum and Jack Reacher, they don't age in the books either. So I don't think the people are expecting that.
So you're writing suspense thrillers. They need tension. Your main character can't be jumping through the daffodils and thrilled and happy all the time. So how do you handle that? Because she's gone through relationships, right? And had a partner in the series and what have you. Are you conscious of how happy you make her and how you have to affect that as you move along?
Yes, because very often readers will come to me and say, please don't put her through any more crap. She's been through too much, just leave her alone. Let her have some happiness. And so one of the ways that I do that is her now husband, they get married in book 11. That relationship is sacred. Like I cannot touch that. People would riot. I mean, so that's one of the things that she's always has this loving, stable partner in her life that.
Right. The guy she shot.
Yes. The guy she shot.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
She's got 20 other things.
Obviously he lived though. So.
Right. Probably not the worst thing that happened in marriage either. So.
It's not the first thing he brings up in an argument.
Right.
Or is it the thing like every time she's like, look, I really would like to go. Could you go make some coffee? And she's like, I don't have to. She goes, well, you shot me.
Yeah.
Or the other way around. She just clicks the gun, and he's like, I'll do it, hon. I've got it. I'm taking the trash out.
Yeah. I also always have her kind of working on her stuff. So she's got a therapist. She went to a trauma retreat, although that turned out horribly and traumatized her more. But the husband saved her in the end. But she's always kind of working on herself and trying to grow and work through all of this trauma so that she can be a better human and less emotionally closed off.
How far are you projecting out? This was something we asked, chatted with Angela Marsons, one of your Bookouture friends, who's a lovely lady. How far out with her editor they're projecting the arcs? How do you do that with your editor? How far are you planning out plots of books and character arcs and stuff now?
When we got to, I was 16 had just come out. I was going to start 17. I hadn't started it yet. That was when we talked about the new contract, which was for 15 books. Before I signed that, we talked about, I want to say like 10 of those books moving forward. The premises are all or like kind of we've shuffled them a bunch of times, so for whatever makes sense. So the premise of the actual books is not that important, but yeah, the overall arc of Josie's life and the other characters was something that we looked at for at least 10 books ahead of time.
So how do you find new cases? Like after 20 cases, at some point, some of the killers might be like, we're doing the same thing again.
I know it's very hard to keep it fresh and come up with something that's a little different. When I went into that meeting where we were kind of like plotting ahead, I had 20 or 30 ideas, and we went through them real fast, and it was like rapid fire, yes, no, yes, no, 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 yes, no. And I think they got me down to like 15. So I like half of them were viable. And then as like I started to write from 17 onward, the things that happen in the books that I've written since then, when I go back and look at the list, I'm like, well, this doesn't make sense to have this next premise. So we'll move one of the other ones up and I'll work on that. And then sometimes I look at the list and I'm like, I'm not feeling any of these. Can we talk about something different? So it is a real challenge. Like even from that list that was established, sometimes when I sit down to outline it, I'm like, this is just not working.
So do you ever have like one where maybe it's on your list that suddenly gets spotlighted because something in real life happens and you're like, oh, well, that was just like what I was getting ready to write about, and you jump on it? Or is it more like you want to shy away from something like that because it's somewhat in the news or traumatic?
I don't really think of it that way. I don't really pay attention to, I don't want to say like the news cycle so much. Because like when I see a news story, yeah, there's this person was murdered and this is what happened. But to me, what's more interesting is what was going on in these people's lives that led up to this. And, most of the time you're not given those pieces in any news report. So I kind of start extrapolating for myself. If something sparks for me, if I imagine 3 scenarios that would have led up to this horrible tragedy, and one of those sparks something for me creatively, then I will go ahead and use that spark, even if it is, kind of contemporaneous with something that is in the news.
Do you keep a Bible or a list of notes to track some of these storylines, or are you a steel trap mind that remembers it all?
I'm not a steel trap. I have like 3 documents. One is the series Bible that just has all the characters and locations and names and all those kinds of things that what descriptions that I've used. And the second document is actually a recap of each book. The person that did it for me, Claire Milto, she goes chapter by chapter because then I can search it. And then the third document is, all the ideas and notes that I have for future books.
So you had somebody do it for you? Like, because that's so daunting. Like I've got, and I know Nick does too, like with 11, 12 books, you start going, I got to go back and figure this out because I should have done it earlier.
What happened to me is I sat down to write book 20, and the first scene in the book is Josie cannot cook at all. And she was trying to cook spaghetti sauce, and it's she dropped the pot and it's like blood spatter all over her kitchen. And I was like, oh, I wonder if I did this already. Are there any books where Josie destroyed her kitchen with spaghetti sauce? And so I emailed Claire and I was like, listen, I know you do the series Bible for me. Would you be willing to do recaps? Because I could do them myself, but it would take forever. And even the series Bible, 3 books a year, I just wouldn't have time for it.
It's a massive undertaking once if you don't do it from the beginning, and that's listen to this, children, do it from the beginning.
Do it from the beginning.
Yeah.
If you think you're not going to write a second book, don't believe yourself.
Yes.
Do a Bible from the beginning.
If you think you're only going to do 3, still do it.
Still do it because you need to know, right?
Because it is a nightmare when you've got 20 plus books out to go back and do it. Unless you're a big deal like Lisa Regan and she has people.
Having people is important, I think, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Having people is really important. Let's talk about your people. You have a lovely assistant. Are we allowed to say who it is?
Yeah. Maureen Downey is my assistant.
Maureen is an absolute sweetheart who I've had the pleasure of chatting with back and forth, and she helps you with the releases and promos and all the social media and stuff like that. Yeah,
she's absolutely brilliant.
How long have you been working with Maureen or another assistant?
Oh, just Maureen. And we started working together in March of 2020. It was right after like the world had shut down during COVID. And she actually was a blogger that used to review my books. And then my husband and I were at a family thing on his side. And there was a woman there that knew her personally, Maureen. And I said, oh, I can't believe you know this blogger, and she lives near me. And so after that, Maureen and I started getting together for lunch. And then by book 8, I was overwhelmed with everything, trying to write 3 books a year. Social media is like a full-time thing, just keeping track of everything. And we were messaging back and forth. And I said to her, like, would you be willing to try this out, being my assistant for a little while? And we said we'd do like a trial period. And then, of course, after like a couple of weeks, I was like, oh, I will die without this person.
Yes. And how do you feel like, so what all has that taken off your plate? How has that changed your career and what you do? Like you said, you die without her. So that's...
Well, she allowed me so much more time to write and so much more time to focus on the stories and the characters and that sort of thing. Because, I'm aware of everything that we we decide to put on social media. I'm on there, but I don't have to do, the actual posting. So she takes care of that. And I just come through and respond to all the comments. And then if I am really up against a deadline and I can't really get onto social media, she'll screenshot me things that are like, this is something I think you need to respond to now. So then I will, she'll say, this is high priority. So, then I'll stop and get on and respond to that. When she reminds me of things, if I've agreed to do a blurb, if anything that I was supposed to do, she's reminding me of that. And the other thing that it allows me to do, which I really enjoy, is to promote other authors.
You are incredibly kind and very generous with that. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just a big fan. I'm just a reader. And so, we talk about all the time, I'll say, oh, so-and-so has a book coming out on, like we have this June 24th, I think, is like Nancy Thompson's. She has a book coming out, which I read, which is unbelievable. It's called Against Orders. You should definitely read it. The point is that I will say to her, listen, here's my list. Here are the books that are coming out. I really want to promote these people, so I don't have to do the graphics. I don't have to upload the links. Do you know what I mean? I will just say to her, say, this is what I thought about it. If you want to put in, if you want to put that in the post, and then I don't have to go like post it on Facebook and then do all the other social medias. I just tell her what I want, what it should say, and she runs with it, which is like fantastic. It takes so much time. She takes that off my plate and I have so much more time to write.
And you also, apart from your regular social, you have a reader group as well, which is a big reader group and are super active.
Yes. They're very engaged.
A lot of interaction. Yeah. It's really cool. And you do a lot of promo giveaway stuff, and she handles all of that.
Yes. So I'll say to her, I want to give this away. And she'll say, okay. And then she'll say, well, you've already got 5 things today. So can I save this for next week? And I'll say, sure. So yeah, I just kind of tell her what I want and then she takes care of it. And then she chooses the winners randomly. And then she does most of the mailing. I mean, occasionally I will do certain things myself. And a lot of times I'll say to her, no, I'll do it. I'll mail it. And then, a week will go by and she'll say, listen, why don't just let me do it?
Sounds like my wife, like going, I'll just go do it myself.
Yeah. She's very patient.
So I've got a quick question that we've started asking everybody. I don't think you got asked this last time. So we're trying to ask all of our authors what they think their superpower is.
I said, I think that I'm prolific, honestly, because I know like a lot of people write more than 3 books a year, but I feel like for mystery thrillers, it's hard because of research and, you have to get the plot just right and plan all the clues and all that stuff. So it's hard to pump those out quickly. But I would say that is my superpower because a lot of authors I know, have said to me, like, it's astounding. I don't understand how you do it.
I think a big difference when looking at that number, because I know there's some people, they're putting out a book a month or more. When you're dealing with a publisher, although Bookouture are not a traditional style New York publishing house, they're pretty, although they're related to one, they're pretty hot on their feet and they're big in the digital format. There is still a lot more of an interactive process than there is when you're just indie publishing. And that time lane is expended. Like when you finish a book, that time from when you finish first draft to it being published is a lot further out. So the overlap of writing the next one and what have you. So I think 3 a year in the situation is prolific. There's no question. Correct me if I'm wrong. A couple of years ago, there was another kind of real turn up in your sales and readership.
Yeah, it's so hard to say. Because a lot of the business is luck and timing, and the difference between Bookouture and the other publishers that I'd been with is that they took time to develop my overall talent and not just a single title. They were looking at me and as an author and not one title. So, and I think that was huge because it gave me a little more confidence. And then, that for me, like looking back, the thing that kind of pushed my career over the edge into some other stratosphere was, I don't know why, I don't know what it was, but book 3 spent 9 weeks on the USA Today bestseller list. And it was like during that time, everything was insane. I mean, people were buying the first 2, figures were through the roof. It just blew up. I don't know why, because the first 2 books up to that point hadn't done that well.
You kind of touched on something that we talked about recently with some other guests, was the idea of luck, that sometimes you can completely duplicate somebody who's successful, and maybe even write better, but they just happen to hit the market the right day. If, had you put a book out the same day as Tess Gerritsen, it might not have,
right.
That's it's not that it's any better or worse, but you just happen to have somebody, it just hits just right. And I think that a lot of times, especially for new writers who struggle to see how other people are succeeding, I think it's it's good to understand that sometimes it's the right place at the right time too. So,
yeah, my biggest piece of advice to new writers, and I believe this so very strongly, is the best thing that you can do for your career is to keep creating new content, because the first book may not be the one that gets you wherever you want to go. It may not be the first, second, third, or fourth book, but I mean, Vanishing Girls was my 6th book, and that didn't break any records. It wasn't until 2 books later. If you keep creating new content, every new book is an opportunity for you to break out and explode. But if you're not creating new content, all of those opportunities are lost. And with each book that you write, the hope is, and I think just by way of practice, you're getting better. So I just strongly believe that you should always be creating new content.
It can really be a snowball effect too, because I think we all know how that, the Amazon algorithms work, and there's the world is built on algorithms everywhere these days. So, sales breeds sales, and we see this all the time. If you can get a little further up the charts, it gets a little, the algorithms start loving it. They throw it out a little bit more in emails to the readers, and being included in an Amazon email of to readers like, hey, if you like this, you'll like this book, and your book is included in it. It's like a freaking rocket ship can take off, and at varying levels, right?
Yes. And after Josie Quinn, after book 3, for a couple of years after that kind of exploded, my backlist, those first 5 books were selling like crazy.
All right, Douglas, you got a wheel?
We have our wheel.
We did this last time.
We did
have our wheel last time, so.
It's still the same wheel. We've changed the questions.
New questions. I just have new questions.
Yeah.
So I don't have to insult any bands this time.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That's right.
Oh, no, yeah. No, this one is, what's your least favorite book? No, I'm just kidding. No, actually, it is, what or who helped influence your writing the most? And so somebody who wrote since you were 11, you probably have some what kind of helped you decide that was what you wanted to do and how you wanted to write?
Mr. Phillip.
Yeah.
So say we didn't even talk about Mr. Phillip either.
I know, you didn't even get to mention that. I had to throw it in there.
Well, I would say my earliest kind of thriller mystery influence was Christopher Pike. But like as an adult writing in the genre, my biggest influence is Karen Slaughter, for sure.
So tell us before we go, how is Mr. Phillip? We need to know about Mr. Phillip before we go. So
he's doing really well. Yeah, he's happy because I just turned in a big edit. He was very upset with me for all the time I was spending
ignoring him.
Yeah. So
if he would edit for you, get his little paws up there and like do the editing, you'd have more time to rub his ears or something.
I know. Except his version of editing is just to slap the keyboard until he's deleted something.
That's how I do it. I don't know. Is that a problem?
Lisa, thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure. We really appreciate it. And best of luck with old 21 through 35.
Yeah. I guess it'll be done next week. So.
Once again, Lisa was an amazing guest.
She's fabulous. I don't know how she comes on with us. Is she going to put up with us twice?
I know.
It's amazing.
Twice she put up with us. Amazing.
Does it one more time. We're married to her. You know that, right?
That's a common law podcast.
Common law
marriage.
Podcast rule. I think at least down here in Tennessee it is. I'm not sure. So.
Well, there's a lot of rules in Tennessee.
I will say, she had some really good points. And I think some of the people who are starting out writing and I've talked to a lot of new writers. I know you recently had dinner with somebody who talked about they're starting out writing it. The key is, like she says, is just to keep writing, but also the whole idea of starting that story Bible, because as somebody, do as I say, not as I do, because I did not. And now it is a daunting task to go back and look into that.
I've half-assed started my Bible going back so many times now, and I don't get very far. So the best I do now is keep up with the better notations of the characters and a few other things in each book, but I'm still not accumulating them. I end up opening my Scrivener files, I think that was in Stolen somewhere. I open that and I'm like, damn it, it's not there. Or you think of a name and I'm like, I used that name before. Wait, where? And you have to hunt through a bunch of stuff and you burn up 45 minutes trying to find whether you used it or not. So never too early to start that.
Yeah, the other thing she said, and I can't stress it enough, is there's so many people write that first book and they think that's going to be the book. It is very, very rare that is the case. I say all the time, my first book, you can go out there, Blood Remembered. If you want to go buy it and read it, please do. But it is crap compared to Red Light at Night that just came out, or Midnight Dance. I mean, it's because we've practiced. Like she said, the sheer practice alone has made us better writers as we go.
So what's going on in your world at the moment, Doug, real quick?
Oh, well, I'll see. I just released Midnight Dance, which is book 2 in the Corsair series.
And it's fantastic.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. We just released Missing in Zanzibar 2 weeks ago. So it's doing very well.
Audiobook will be coming soon. Ray is recording it as we speak. Sorry we couldn't bring it out at the same time, but Doug and I got behind on the writing.
That also pushes back. Since Ray does the Corsair series, he's got to finish Missing in Zanzibar, and then move on to Midnight Dance for me. So,
and then Missing in Hawaii.
It's available
now. Be the next one.
That's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, we've got that on pre-order.
We will have some fun with that one. So,
cool.
We're going to take a field trip, right?
Yeah, we are. We got to take a field trip over to Hawaii and go look around. Cool. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Check out the show notes for links to Lisa's books, which if you haven't read Lisa's work, do yourself a favor and grab a copy, and you'll be sucked into that brilliant series. Our books, social media, and all that other rubbish is all over there. And we have new episodes out every 2 weeks. Well, there's good stuff there too.
All your stuff is fabulous. So.
Yours too, buddy.
Thank you, man. I love you.
Yeah, love you too. All right, till next time. Be cool to each other.
Fair winds and following seas.
You've been listening to the Two Authors podcast with Nicholas Harvey and Douglas Pratt. Subscribe on your favorite platform for alerts on new shows coming every 2 weeks.